Yep. Yes. Good afternoon. Welcome back to the session 2 of the 16th ICAHT. Good afternoon and welcome. A very, very warm welcome to all of you. We are really, really privileged to having you here. I would like to now welcome once again formally to our session chairman, Mr. PMS Uppal, President OGTC. We all know him so well now and he needs no introduction, but still I will just, for the people who've just joined us, Mr. PMS Uppal is a visionary and founder president of OGTC, a cluster of garment manufacturing companies in the NCR region of India. Mr. Uppal is the managing director of PM Pro Exports, which is part of a vertically integrated PM Pro group comprising of Hemla embroidery and creative dyeing and printing works. The group has complete facilities for woven fabrics, right from dyeing and printing to the finished garments. Welcome, sir. Welcome to the session 2. Let me also introduce to you our moderator for this session. We are honored to welcome you once again, Mr. Prashant Agarwal, Joint Managing Director, Wazir Advisors, an expert on corporate strategy, business creation, diversification, and performance enhancement assignments in the textile, apparel, and retail sector for Indian and international clients with over 25 years of experience. A very, very warm welcome, sir, to you.
Thank you.
I would also welcome our panelists for this session. We are extremely fortunate to have with us Professor Chandan Chowdhury. Professor Chowdhury is currently a senior associate dean and a practice professor of operations management and information systems at the Indian School of Business, Hyderabad. He has an excellent blend of academia and industry. He's passionate about leveraging technology to make the world a better place to live. We are also fortunate to have with us Professor Vasanthi Srinivasan. Welcome, ma'am. Professor, IIM Bangalore, a postgraduate from XLRI Jamshedpur and a fellow in management from IIM Bangalore. Professor Vasanthi Srinivasan has many research projects to her name. She's currently also on the advisory board of National Human Resource Development Network, the Bangalore chapter. Our third speaker for this session is Mr. Sarbajit Ghose, Managing Director, Laguna Clothing. Sarbajit Ghose, sir, is also the Asia Executive Director of CIEL Textiles, a global player in textile and garment operations with presence in Mauritius, Madagascar, India, and Bangladesh. He's a mechanical engineer PGDM from IIM, the Jain, Business Director, Wazir Advisors Private Limited. Mr. Jain is a result-oriented professional having a rich and dynamic experience of 26 years in the apparel sector, including manufacturing, management, customer service, quality system management, and human resource development. He has held top management positions in well-known apparel manufacturing firms in India, Bangladesh, and Vietnam. So we have a very rich session, and I wholeheartedly welcome our session chairman, our moderator, and all our panelists. Welcome on board.
टोनी जी थोड़ा सा स्क्रीन आप थोड़ा सा कर देंगे आपका फेस फुल विजिबल या थैंक यू दैट्स फाइन थैंक यू सर
Good afternoon everyone.
And to
Should we, Prashant, should we start?
Yeah, I think there is some internet problem at Ruchira's place, so you can start, please, sir.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We, till the time we run industries or whatever we may do, the journey of evolving will continue. And without that journey, everything will come to a standstill. That's how the world is going. That's the way we want to go, and always trying to find ways of evolving into this process. One of a very important subject, which is to all of us, and I've always kept that at a very high platform, is the importance of role of middle management in today's competitive era. In most of the organization, the middle management really works with objectives given to them, instructions given to them, and they are supposed to bring results on the table. And if we want to go on this journey, we need to strengthen the middle management to be able to take decisions, to make goals, to achieve goals, and we've got to honor them. To reach that level of any involvement, any improvement, any change cannot happen in the organization without really a great participation of the middle management. So we are on for a very important subject. We have some of the best panelists whose knowledge level, if we were to go through by just introducing their so-called possibilities, will take an hour. And we only have an hour in this process. So I'm gonna please welcome Mr. Prashant Agarwal to take this important subject forward. And I'm very sure most of the attendees, or all the attendees, will have a lot to take home. And thank you to all the panelists to be here and trying to, at least I would say, get their knowledge, what they have got throughout their life, to share with us. Thank you so much. On to you, Prashant.
Thank you, Tony ji. And as you rightly said, we have panelists who have vast experience in this field, I think, and this subject is very important. The panel discussion today is on growing importance of role of middle management in today's competitive era. And we all understand, but I think we are still trying to find the right solutions. We are still struggling in terms of what is the right path? How do we invest? Because I think if we understand really the importance of it, the way we focus on marketing, the way we focus on when we are buying technology, I think the solution lies in the real focus. I think with a lot of learnings from my panelists today, we will be able to create a focus, answers to some of the questions which everybody is looking for. So without explaining much, because I have experienced panelists on this, my key questions which I would like to get answers through this panel today is, what should be the ideal role of middle management? Why it is important? What are the current challenges? How do we get the right middle management? How to achieve sustainable results? What kind of training is needed? Suppose if we need those kind of people, what kind of training is needed? And with that training, to sustain that, what kind of incentive and motivation needs to be planned? So these are some of the questions which I have in mind, which I want to get answers through my panel today. So I'll straight away start with Professor Chandan Chowdhury. Professor, over to you, and then we will have your views, everybody's panel's views, and then we have interactive session to get the answers. Thanks. Please, over to Prof.
May I share a few slides?
Yeah, okay, fine. Thank you.
Okay, let's just try to share a few slides. Yeah. Can you see my slide?
Yeah, we can see your slide.
Okay. So I think the topic of today's discussion is very interesting, and I think it's a very important topic. And if this discussion would have happened probably before COVID, I would have said that whatever was there in the literature not much has changed. But I think in the current context, there is a lot of change, and especially because now also if I look at the theme of the conference, right? The theme of the conference. So what I'm planning to do is share with you some real data, some data from our country on the kind of impact which we are experiencing as far as the impact of COVID is concerned. And we'll also try to get a feeler of what managers think at various levels. And then we get into that specific topic of role of middle managers in a world which is increasingly becoming contactless. And then I'll sum up the takeaways. So I really liked the theme of the conference, which is accelerating competitiveness in post-COVID-19 world. Now, I've got 7 slides which sums up some of our research related to these challenges. Now, let's start with the first one. So we had 199 organizations which participated in one of our polls. And our question was, will the way we do business after COVID-19 change significantly? So that was the question. And almost 72% of the respondents say they believe the way we do business will change. That's point number 1. I wanted to move on and share with you the next question. So we asked them, do they think we need to review our product portfolio because customer demands are changing, customers' requirements are changing. We had more than 80% of the companies say they believe they need to review product portfolio. And that was point 2. Now, point number 3 was we wanted to know how quickly that should happen. So we asked the question, do they believe we should quickly launch new products? 70% say we should quickly launch new product portfolio. Now, coming to the next question, when you spoke about innovation, I think that's a very important topic. We are not going to discuss now, but India's value-add manufacturing in terms of percentage is going down. It has been going down since 2010. So we moved down from some 17% to 13.5% last year. So we wanted to know the digital innovation platform. Our company is having it. 8.7% companies say that they have got some kind of digital innovation infrastructure. Our next question was digital knowledge. What do they think about digital knowledge? Will it become very important at all levels, especially at senior level? 95% say that they believe digital knowledge will be a must. And when you spoke about e-commerce, you had 90.3% of the companies say that they need to scale up their e-commerce channel. And when you asked if they believe employees need to remove their knowledge, scientific management knowledge, their answer was 74.1% say that ad hoc management style may not work post-COVID. Employees got to build up their scientific knowledge. Now this plethora of technologies, Prashant actually spoke about some of that. Advanced robotics, 3D printing, augmented and virtual reality, simulation and integration, IoT and industrial IoT, and cloud computing. In fact, some of the speakers spoke about it. I think they all will have big impact. Now, this is a picture from one of the OGTC companies, right? How the shop floor is structured today, what middle management is doing today in the context of how production facilities were managed pre-COVID. I think a lot is going to change. We will see 3D and design and virtual and augmented reality will become very, very important. In fact, Mr. Uppal spoke about 2 things in his inaugural address. He spoke about the importance of cooperation and collaboration. I think how do we leverage digital platform for cooperation and collaboration will be critical. There were discussions during Prashant's talk on Hugo Boss. Now, I think a lot of collaboration is going to be contactless. So you will have sample which will be viewed virtually from different parts of the world. The engagement will be contactless. And that traditional thought process that top management got big size brain and middle management's brain is smaller in size, I think that is not going to work in the post-COVID-19. So at all levels of management, we need to believe that top level, middle level, and at execution level, everybody can think. So middle managers are not just implementers. We conducted a study which I will discuss in detail in the workshop that I will conduct in the afternoon. We actually analyzed 103 job roles, which represent 80% of textile industry's workforce in the country. Our study shows that out of these 103 job roles, 30 job roles will remain with human, around 29.1%. In the right side, you see 34% of the jobs will be taken over by machines in the textile industry. In the afternoon workshop, I'll discuss about apparel. We'll do a deep dive on apparel. But at a textile industry level, 34% of the jobs will be replaced by machines. Now, you see the middle one, which is the highest, around 36.9% of the jobs will be hybrid. In one set of jobs, machine will lead, human will support, and in other set of jobs, you will have human will lead and machine will support. So I think future job roles are going to be quite different from what they are today. So the second point that I wanted to leave, the who is at top level, middle level, and operational level, it will not depend on the age, right? You may find people from Gen Z, maybe in middle level or maybe at top level. So this demographic, right? The demographic would bring about a big change in the way middle managers would think, because they would come from different generations versus how middle management were in the past generation. They're not going to be just from the baby boomers period. Now, this is the last thought process before I hand over the floor to Prashant again, that there is a study which was reported on 1st of March 2021, and I have some views on the top of it which I will share. The authors say that middle management is often misunderstood. They are misdirected, misguided, and poorly trained. So training is a big problem. And whenever there are problems, it's the middle managers who are blamed. And some leaders say that middle managers are not able to convey the message to operational level effectively. Some of them believe that middle managers do not escalate to top management when there are problems at operational level. They hide it and it creates problems. Now, my question is that can much of what middle managers do be replaced by artificial intelligence? Now, on the top of what the author said, I would like to add 3 dimensions. One is automation and robots. Second is young workforce at all levels, not just operation, but middle and top, and world becoming increasingly contactless. Now, taking these 3 aspects into consideration, I would like to say that effective middle managers are even more critical during these times of remote work, automation and robots, young workforce at all levels, and contactless environment. So I think middle managers will become more important than ever before. And the decision, are the middle managers or not, will not depend on their age. Finally, we recently did a study with one of the large organizations, And we wanted to understand what kind of skills they believe are going to be critical in future. At the top was artificial intelligence, big data, machine learning, and data science, followed by advanced robotics, digital transformation, IoT, blockchain, additive manufacturing, circular economy, we had a session on that, software engineering, and augmented and virtual reality. To sum up, I would like to say digital continuity is going to be very, very important. Not just the physical world, but the digital world. Not just the physical factory, but the digital factory. Not just the physical supply chain, but the digital supply chain, and the digital continuity across the value chain will become very, very critical in a world which is becoming increasingly contactless. Middle manager's role will be beyond just implementation, and our production factories will be increasingly smart, connected, leveraging IIoT and cloud. I think digital knowledge will be a must to be globally competitive, and we need to prepare our employees at all levels, top, middle, and operation for the future of skills. Thank you, and over to Prashant.
Thank you, Professor Chandan Chowdhury. And I think you have set the tone of this panel really, really well with all the right data and statistics in place. And I would say, I think a little change in terms of some of the questions which I have asked for the panel before and after Professor Chandan's presentation. I think the change is that I don't think we need to ask this question in terms of what are the challenges. We now know what we are going to face in future, and we have to only discuss about how we need to be prepared to face those challenges instead of harping in terms of what we have done in past. Can our people do it? First, my real deep dive into what Dr. Chandan talked about. Second, more important point is I think we talk about middle management, top management, and earlier yesterday also I discussed with Sarbajit on that. I think there is lines are blurred in terms of middle and top management. So what is needed, what roles Professor Chandan listed about for middle management are true for top management also. So I don't think in times to come there will be really demarcation in terms of top, middle. So if top management are to be trained on all of these roles, because these roles are new for top management also, the middle management needs to be trained about these roles. So I would say the lines are blurred on that. So I would not like to talk about middle management, top management, because all have to do this role. With these, I think a deep understanding in terms of what Professor Chandan talked about gives me a good insight into what lies for us in future. I'll go to Mr. Sarbajit on this, and then I think with that understanding, I would like to have your views. Sarbajit, to you.
Yeah. First of all, thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to participate in this conference. I am actually literally sandwiched between two distinguished academics and two eminent consultants as a practitioner. And hopefully I will use this opportunity to tell you what happens on the ground in our industry as I see it. So most of the businesses are owner managed traditionally. The industry is quite fragmented. And for a long time, it was protected because of the quota regime. And typically, the middle management and even some parts of the top management used to come from the tailors and the technicians. They used to emerge as the leaders and they used to take up positions. Workers were mostly women, and they could be permanent, they could be contract, depending on north or south. And the supervisors, executives, they're usually alpha males who were trying to get productivity out of them, quality out of them. It was not, most factories, especially our factory at least, we often have a situation where the supervisor or the manager is screaming and shouting in the shop floor because he's not meeting his quality or delivery targets. Overall, the entire supply chain has traditionally been fairly unreliable. Customers keep changing requirements. There's usually buying houses in between. So communication flow is not great. There is uneven output and productivity. Systems are there in some places and not in some other places. So generally speaking, barring a few exceptions, many companies in our industry are still in a firefighting mode, And overall, again, barring a few exceptions, we don't have the best reputation for the, quality, reliability, and so on. And we often blame the workers, as Prashant often says, though maybe they are not the persons at fault. Meanwhile, the industry is getting more competitive. Quality, cost, delivery, lead times is taken for granted. More than that, people are looking for value-added services like design development, product development, and so on. And now we have new age requirements like sustainability, digital transformation, sophistication in processes, and things like that. So too many things are happening at the same time. Okay. And I just want to share with you how we try to tackle this issue. So we started this company, Laguna Clothing, in 2006. This is part of a large international group, but I had the good fortune to start this business from scratch, and we built it to about 400-500 crores turnover, highly profitable in the high-end formal shirt segment. Very early in the game, we realized that if we looked at the middle management skill pool which is available, they were not really adequate in terms of managing the transition which was happening in the industry, in terms of all these new technologies coming in, which our earlier distinguished speaker also spoke about. So first thing we did was, even before we started production in a big way, we went to NIFT and took students from there. And believe me, that was one of the best decisions we took. We got well-trained, educated people, and we had a mix. We had what we call thinkers, people who were educated in NIFT, who had gone through a competitive exam. They were aware of trends. We looked for good leaders. We didn't just look for merchants or designers. And we also had people who typically came up from the ranks, who were tailors, technicians with leadership skills. And this became our middle management. Now, what was our expectation? Our expectation was much more than, controlling people or, translating policies. We wanted these guys to be entrepreneurs. We actually took many of them as summer trainees and gave them very challenging opportunities, fast growth, empowerment, and we really made it interesting for them to be feeling that they were owners of the business, in their respective areas. This has worked out very well. Almost 70% of our middle and senior middle managers are educated people from NIFT. And we also have a mix of people who have come up from the ranks. On the flip side, it's not easy to manage the Generation Y and the Generation Z, They're very ambitious. They can leave very quickly. There are many options. Garmenting is not the most interesting option. People are setting up unicorns. They're getting into all kinds of things. But we have nurtured leadership. We have mentored them. We have given them opportunities to take up challenges, and they have grown with us. We have tried to retain them. Even today, many of the things which are happening in the world, like digital transformation, lean, sustainability, even I, with a decent education, I do not understand fully. I have to depend on Prashant to give me inputs most of the time. So yesterday I was giving an example. I was preparing a very complicated PowerPoint presentation, and my go-to person was a fresher from NIFT who knows exactly how to use these tools, put the right concepts together, and make me look good. So as the world is changing, there is a huge need for talent, which will have to work together with people who actually know how to make the product or design the product. And together, we can actually take on many of these opportunities. So once you create this pool of talent, many things fall in place. One is, as entrepreneurs, they create a culture which helps fast growth. Empowerment becomes very important. A professional culture gets created. And it is our experience is that it is far easier to take talent and groom them and retain them than to try and, change only the people who exist traditionally in the industry. It should be a mix. Obviously, some of them are very valuable, but bringing in fresh talent and General Y and General Z is also very, very important. So this is broadly what I feel as a practitioner. It may be a little different from some of the other points of view, but it has worked out very well for us. In fact, we are expanding this. We have created a global management stream where in our bigger group, where each of the businesses act very independently, we are attracting talent and we are encouraging them to work across business units, across geographies, and actually grow into senior management as CEOs. When we talk about them, we don't talk about them as being merchants or designers or production workers or industrial engineers. We look at them as leaders of tomorrow, people who can potentially become CEOs of business units in the next 10 to 15 years, even shorter. This is where the world is going, and this is what we are trying to make it work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarbajit. I think bringing straight, as you are saying, from the shop floor, what are the realities? We might talk anything, industry 4.0 and everything, but hard realities at the shop floor are completely different than what we want to visualize when we want to move forward. And I think this topic, I'll just sum up in terms of what you talked about. It's I always, when somebody asks me, Prashant, can you help me find the right person? Because that's very important for the organization. I always tell them, if you have one, you give me, because the only thing I have learned is all the people who are in my organization also who have reached to the director level, except few, they have joined me when they were 1 or 2 years out of college, and they have reached to a position at the director's level over a period of time. So I think you need to groom people. Second, even those who are there, I think another thing which I learned seeing different organizations, that when as a CEO, as a promoter, you want to get best out of people, you have to keep encouraging them, not looking at their negatives or shortfalls, but seeing that how we can, because you always need to have a mix, Sarbajit. Like you can take people from outside. You need to have your own people who have worked with you for so long. How do you groom them? So both things becomes important. With this, I would like to move to Ms. Vasanthi ji from IIM Bangalore. I think your understanding, having a knowledge of wide variety of industry, not only garment, will be helpful here. Thanks. Please.
Sure. Thank you, ji. I'm going to kind of start from what Sarbajit ji and Chandan ji left with.
Right.
So first one is that I think we do a disservice by clubbing all middle managers as one homogeneous entity. They are not. There are middle managers whose responsibility traditionally has been coordination. There are middle managers whose responsibility has actually been to act as a linking pin between workers and top management. Okay. So for the first time, I think this distinction between managers who are coordinators and managers who actually are creating value on behalf of the organization, this separation is becoming stark and distinct. And one of the reasons for that is clearly all that Professor Chandan spoke about in terms of digital itself putting pressure on organizations. So in some ways, I think there are managers and there are managers. And when we talk about middle managers, we are talking about both of these categories. And so today's conversation, when I want to look at it, I want to look at it in terms of, are we looking at investing in managers who will drive operational efficiency? But are we also looking at investing in manager who will actually shape the strategy, whichever industry it may be? That's the first point. The second point is that I think entrepreneurs have always seen people as cost. For the first time now, we are having discussions on people as assets. The moment you look at people as a cost emphasis, and in industries, particularly like garments, where a significant part of the labor cost is the cost of business, it's very easy to treat people as commodity. In a commodity thinking perspective, to bring in the idea of investment for a long-term future is not the natural mindset. So I think the point also that I have observed in the work that I have done, particularly with wage-intensive industries, is that people as an asset, as a mindset, has to actually come from entrepreneurs' thinking. The third part that I'm kind of going to focus on in looking at middle managers, because in the last 10 years, across organizations, I must have taught maybe 4,000 to 5,000 mid-managers. Primarily because organizations, and when I'm talking about these organizations, I'm not talking of large organizations. I am talking of organizations across sectors which are scaling. And this is the point that I want to leave. Let's assume that our GDP growth rates are 6.6 to 7%. And I'm being very, very conservative. Which means that there will be some industries that will grow at 15 to 50%, and there will be industries that will grow at 2 to 3%. The most important thing to note is that if a sector is growing at 15% and firms are growing at 30 to 50%, remember that the educational institutions outside and the skilling organizations outside do not skill people at 30% or 50%. They are still skilling at 6 to 8%. So which means the math there is very simple, that for the next 25 years, even assuming that we are going at 6% growth and GDP, we can be sure that the skills shortage will persist across all levels. And this is something that I'll also talk of in the afternoon in the workshop. But the last point I think that I want to leave at this stage is that if technologies are changing, if customer trends and expectations from the organization in terms of new product introduction is changing, what is that mix of people we need? And I think Sarbajit very nicely articulated it in terms of what they did. It's almost like an investment portfolio of what kinds of people do I need in the organization? What kind of investments do I need? And therefore, what kind of outlays am I going to set out? And most importantly, what kind of people planning processes do I have in place? And it's here that I want to kind of take a minute, no more than that, to just ask some questions. What kind of aspirations do we want to create for our people? Which means we need to be clear what sets of roles exist in our organizations through which we can meet aspirations. And then the whole process of, are people educated? And this is a study that a colleague of mine did on looking at careers in the garment industry. And we did this several years ago. People never saw careers when they joined. So how do we actually create career aspirations in an industry where the average worker has very difficult to aspire to actually become a senior manager? Where are the role models? Yeah? So some of these questions, I think this is the time to ask as you're looking at where do I build my middle management from? Okay. And the last point that I want to actually close with is the point that Professor Chandan made. If I have to blend technology and people, do we know how to even think about collaborating with a robot? What kind of decisions should be left to people and what kind of decisions should be left to machines? Clearly, the senior management and the entrepreneurs are not the people who are going to make those decisions. In the work that I have done in automation, it clearly shows that people who can identify automation opportunities are middle managers because they work so closely with the process. Okay? So I think the point is middle managers will be needed. Entrepreneurs' growth is directly related to middle manager capability building. And we will need coordinators as managers, but we will also need people who can harness technology to shape the future. And I'm going to pause there for now. Over to you, Prashantji.
Yeah, thanks, Vasanthi. I think this session is emerging as a real learning opportunity for me also. Personally speaking, I am writing each and every point and seeing that how, if I would have 2 hours to discuss, I would continue discussing about it, but we will still try to manage and take conclusions out of this. I think one important point, Vasanthi, you talked about treating people as not cost as assets. I think this, if go inside all the people, entrepreneurs who are working, who really deep down they understand and think through it, imbibe it, I think a lot of answers will start emerging themselves. So another point which I saw from your, or I could get from your few inputs that you gave, was that how do you, because it seems that not only middle management, the CEOs, the owners need a lot of training and mindset change to be able to even start the process. So this is a whole lot of process, there's a whole lot of understanding, and there is a mindset needed to be changed before even to start a process. And I would share that one of the biggest globally best company in the world for garment industry, MAS Holding, their chairman in the company looks after only training. No production, no marketing, no investment, no buyer handling, only training is the role. There are 2 more brothers, and like one is handling marketing and production, but he never interferes in anything. He only sees that if my people are delivering what they're supposed to deliver, I think all of you are all replaceable. Because if my people are doing everything, everybody is replaceable. I think this is the message which MAS Holding chairman gave to me once. So with this, let me go to Surender Jain, with having his vast experience. While Sarbajit was saying that there are 2 consultants, I would say I am the only consultant, because Surender is more of a shop floor person who has worked more than anybody else, because having worked in wide variety of factories from mid to top senior wide products. Surender, I would like to get some inputs from you in terms of, we talked about, we have seen why role middle management is important. I would like you to throw some light in terms of what are the clear roles which are important that you see of the middle management, and also from your experience, what kind of training help you deliver better results of those middle management. I think if some inputs on those lines will be helpful for us to understand. Over to you, Surender.
Yeah, thanks, Prashant. And really, like you have already answered, Sarbajit. I'm towards operation side. And second, let me come back to the point what you asked. And really, it's a wonderful topic which was neglected throughout the time. And always, like if I go back, like early 90s when we started, when I was getting trained, side by side we were training the people also. So training is the key point, no doubt about it. I'm talking about early 90s when industry was growing in India. And till now, when I see last 25, 30 years, we have not learned so much from that experience. If you see, like we talk about Bangladesh, Vietnam, China, Indonesia, we talk about a lot of countries, and still what growth Vietnam has made, everybody understand where is the Bangladesh, but why not India? That question is being asked throughout. It is a major part is training, how we train the people, but what to be trained? That's the question. Whom to be trained? Next question. The important point, what like my all very experienced people have shared, like how you want to define this, who should do what. So I call it, first of all, we should divide into 2 parts, any organization. One part is senior management, second is execution management. When we talk about senior management, who should make system and process? Who should make with SOP strategies, right? Middle management really, who is the line management or planning or like supply chain, they are not the people who are already, like this point has been discussed by Vasanthi also. And very nicely it is explained. And when we work, when we deliver the projects, because we are doing re-engineering, we are doing a lot of improvements in the factories, we try to separate out who should do what. We can call it job descriptions, we call it like KPIs. We can we should define what is the expectation from whom. Sometimes we are expecting from middle management, floor management, they should do wonder. They should, for example, let me come back to the floor. We are expecting they should give 60% efficiency, but nobody is bothering whether we are able to feed or not. We are able to give right machinery or not. We are able to feed the right number of people or not. You know, who is responsible for feeding the people? Then one is number of people, then what type of people? Again, how people should be trained. I mean, this is a very vast topic, which really need to work out in detail. And when we take months and months to brainstorm, to put a strategy, to train the people, and because training is not a general process, first of all. Training is a very, very specific process. What is expected from individual? Even I'll give an example how middle management is giving their, participating in productivity of the factory. Like, if you ask me, like my experience says, the whole role is the middle management, which define the performance of a company, not the top management, not the bottom workers. Technically, I am believing top management has invested the money, they invested in the people, they want the result. Workers have come to the factory to earn the basics and they want to work. It's a middle management who has to bridge the gap. So it's a how technical knowledge in system and process knowledge, what system process to be established in the factory, how people to be trained, and then how they will speak or what soft skill they should have, how they should deal with the workers. This is very important. Now we go to the factories. I generally visit 40, 50 factories every year, you understand. And now whether it's any country, Vietnam, China, Cambodia, India, everywhere problem is same. There is no difference. Only it's a middle management which make the change. Now, when we are on the floor, how we are designing the line, workers are sitting, how they are performing, whether lines are balanced. I mean, when we go in the integrity of the result or the performance, it's a middle management. It's their knowledge. We take from people from NIFT, we take BTech, we take engineers, but are they trained to work in that? Like Sarbajit said nicely, how much time we have spent, how much investment we have done on those people to get it trained. This is the neglected part. When really we go to the factory, we see the difference. In Laguna is a exception. If you ask me what Sarbajit has spent time, and we understand, I met him before Corona and we spent long time together. And we found it's a difference. Like you gave an example of mass holding or branding. So why we cannot? What they did, the difference. The difference is training, the difference in system and process, the difference in what we are expecting from whom. I mean, this is the basic point. As far as training is concerned, more focus should be on technical training. When I say technical training, is a system and process, which should be established first. People should understand, and then they should be trained to give the result. And second is soft skills, how the handling, how they should deal with the workers, with colleagues, with the seniors, so that these can be accommodated. I mean, this is the point specific to your question. Thank you.
Surender, thanks for these inputs. And I have another question for you, as well as I would like Sarbajit to also delve on it, because both of you are talking about shop floor. When whatever you talked about, Surender, it needs, suppose we are saying we need to skill people. And the challenge, or what Professor Chandan Chowdhury talked about, that we are talking about an age of digitalization. So all of these are good sounding words, but when it comes to a person on the ground who is there, you're not bringing people from outside. There is a mindset. They say, oh, if they are talking about so much, I don't understand anything. So he has a feeling of insecurity that will I lose my job while trying to learn, because what I have learned is no more useful. So in that process, he is not ready to learn what you are trying to say. And it takes much more time, or finally, maybe he creates more problems so that it never should get implemented. So how do you really take care of this mindset? First to Surender, then to Sarbajit. Yeah, please.
Yeah, Prashant, to be honestly, in this, it's a series of things happened. If we go in detail, because garment apparel business is not started as a professional, right? As a middle management. It is started from workers. Initially 5 machines, then 50 machines, then 100, then 300, by virtue of time over last 30 years, if I say from 80 to now, in last 35, 40 years, where the industry is growing in India, we have not spent more time on the floor, or maybe 95% of industry have not spent time. 5% may be exceptions. exception we should keep aside for a minute. When we are talking about this mindset, what is the, like how mindset is developed? I am a worker. I spend about 15 years, 20 years on the floor. I become supervisor. I perform good by shouting, by doing this. I'll become a GM. Then I'll become a, now when we meet with 50 GM level people, out of 50, 44 or to 45, they have this mindset. Let's leave it like supervisor or worker separately, because the whole chain is like that. Now, when we come back to, like Sarbajit explained, we took Niftians, or engineers or industry engineers. How many factories are following real industry engineering job? People talk about industry engineer, but does they understand? Their record keeping is the industry engineering. If they are making the reports, efficiency report, it means they are the industry engineer. Is it the real mean? So that mean need to be understand. When I speak about system process, when I speak about what they should do, so this is the engineering we are talking about. This is the knowledge we are talking about. So that's why we have to start inculcating putting the right SOP, right system, train them nicely, and then handhold them. That's why sometimes people ask me, Surender, why you cannot do in 1 month, 2 months? Yes, I can do in 1 day also. I have ready-made paper, I have a sheet, I can give you. But change the DNA, change the blood cell, it will take at least 6 to 9 months. That's why this process, changing the mindset, is a longer process. Because in apparel business is not like textile. There's a big difference. Textile is more depending on machineries, less on people. When come to apparel business, it is more about manpower. Now in garment factories, if you have 1,000 machines, 2,000 people are working. 500 machines, 1,000 people are working, right? So I mean, this is more about to understand the culture and then to change the culture by way of training, by way of putting the right people on the right job. Thank you.
So in nutshell, Surender, what you are saying is that we need to train them in the right process. Once they become confident and they see the results, they will automatically forget, instead of trying to make them forget the other one and then trying to implement the new one by giving them better skills. I think let me go to Sarbajit to get an answer on that first hand. How do you do the mindset change, Sarbajit?
So I don't see any fundamental contradiction. As I told you, there is 2 sets of people. One is the thinkers, people who got educated, and the doers, people who have come up from the ranks, who are tailors, who are pattern developers and all. Okay, now the guy who has studied a NIF cannot make a shirt. And the guy who makes a shirt cannot do digital transformation. Okay, now the culture can be 2. One is you can create politics between the 2 groups, or one tries to be above the other. Or you create a culture where there is good mutual respect and both strengths are used for growing the company. I think in some ways we've been able to do that well. So a lot of learning does not happen in training programs. It happens when people informally trust each other and are willing to share knowledge and gain from each other's experience and expertise. And that is how the company grows. It's not very complicated. It's quite simple. One cannot function without the other and vice versa.
Yeah, I think thanks and well understood. I think all what I'm getting vibe says that when you talk about middle management training and everything, it's not only factory performance. The kind of culture you need to build becomes also important. Ruchira, I will take 5 minutes more instead of finishing on, because we started 5 minutes late, because it's a very important panel. Just 5 minutes more so that I have some more inputs to take from that.
Most definitely.
So as your photo emerges, I thought you want to close it.
No, not sir. I'm going to turn off my video. Okay.
Okay. No, please continue. So I have one more question to Vasanthi and Professor Chandan. You have experience of dealing with not only garment companies, but wide variety of companies across industries. When we talk about this change management, that middle management, can you pinpoint one thing each to start? And so everybody has to start from somewhere. That how do you make that change? I can't ask you all the details because again we are limited on time, and you have a workshop session where you can explain. But if you pinpoint one point which makes companies start on something, I would like to hear from both of you those points.
I think in my experience, what is the trigger is often that when companies want to grow and expand, they suddenly look inside and they find that they don't have enough people. to be able to scale. I think that's the first trigger. Now, how could this arise? This could arise because they have got a business opportunity that's knocking on their door, or they have hired an external consultant who came in and told them that basically you don't have. So to my mind, the trigger often is external more rather than internal. And the second one is that what is the first thing that is needed when we look at the employees that they send? Exposure on an average is very poor. Exposure to industry, exposure to competition, exposure to quality standards, exposure to their own certified standards to which they have always proudly said, we are all of these compliant. Even that is weak among the employees that they are nominating and sending, which means that is their best talent. So there is no substitute for exposure. And I think exposure is today hygiene.
Okay. Really well taken, Vasanthi ji. I think two important points. One point definitely for all industry to understand, you have to take input from experts. So I think we are here for that. So that's very important, because you can't say that you know all. So, and we also don't say we know all. So it's kind of, you need to take input to bring an outside view. And second is exposure to your own people, so that they come back and ask you questions. Otherwise, they won't ask you questions even. Professor Chandan.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree with what Professor Vasanthi said. I wanted to highlight two aspects. One aspect is organizations are forced by their customers, and they realize that they have to change, else they're not in business. That's one. Other is, there are organizations which are setting, one of the speakers spoke in earlier sessions, those huge goals, ambitious goals. They say, I want to be 3.5 times, 4 times in next 4 years. So those organizations often would draw a strategy. If they got to be 3.5 times in 3.5 years versus, let's say, in 40 years, something got to change. And then they realize that change in mindset is important.
Correct.
Many of these organizations I have seen, they also involve external consultants, because they respect that outsider view. And they don't go by everything that is said by consultants. But consultants bring in a kind of a fresh blood, and you get insights on why it is important to change, and mindset change becomes an integral part of it. Yes, over to you.
Thank you, Professor Chandan. And I think it's very important. Kesarji will also say that for OGTC, they really keep their conference on time. So I'm already overshooting by 2-3 minutes. So I'll just sum up, because otherwise it can be endless discussion with such kind of experienced panelists on my panel. So what I would say, first thing, just a brief, so that people have an understanding of what we discussed. I'll try to sum up in next 1 minute. First thing, what Professor Chandan said, we need to set our goals. We need to set targets. Unless until we don't have a target that we want to grow, I think all of that after this conference we'll forget, because we have no targets, we have no growth targets. So we'll say, okay, we listened, it was good, and let's move on. So I think if we have set our targets, I think it will force us to change. That's second thing what Professor Chandan talked about. And then as Vasanthi ji talked about, she said there has to be there are all kinds of people. There are different roles for different people. You can't club all in one basket. You can't say that if I do not understand Industry 4.0, I have no role to play. There are role for every person in the organization. There has to be a mindset change, and then we can move on. Third, very important point, that the world is changing ahead. So if we don't change, I don't think we'll survive. That's very, very important, because though everybody wants to work in business to earn and grow. And if you don't earn, you don't grow, then all of the businessmen have enough money to keep struggling and keep working. So they will say, okay, let me not grow. So I think That's very important. What Sarbajit and Surender also talked about, I think very important that for growth, you need to have systems and processes to build them. I think what Sarbajit said, you need to have a right pool of talent, trust them, give them exposure, let them grow, and they will be your front runner to make you change instead of you thinking, how should I change? If you give them exposure, you hire the right people, you let them grow, they will push you for change, because if you don't change, if you don't grow, they will exit. I think this is briefly, there were a lot of things which were talked about. I can't keep going on and summing up things, but I think this is a lot of learning, a clear direction which I could get from this panelist. Thanks to all of you, Vasanthi ji, Professor Chandan, Sarbajit, Surender. I think with your experience, I can write briefly in terms of what we talked about and send it to OGTC so that they can circulate. Because I think OGTC is a very growing, forward-looking organization, and everybody wants to grow. I think with these kind of parameters and guidelines being set, I see a good lot of people in OGTC who would like to take cue from what you have said today and would like to go further. Thanks. Over to you, Ruchira. Over to Tony ji from here. Tony ji, you are there? Or Ruchira, over to you.
Hi, sir.
I'm here.
I
I'm
think,
here.
yeah, Tony sir is here. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Well,
Yes,
thank
sir.
you very much. I think it's a very well spoken and a very well judged subject. The importance of middle management has been spoken by Professor Chandan. Ms. Srinivasan has spoken about people working for you are actually assets rather than commodities. Mr. Sarbajit Ghose, who's hands-on in this industry, has spoken about a mixture of all sort of talents to bring in a common result, which I think really is a great process. Again, we come down to coordination and cooperation. That if we have a mix of people, do they coordinate and cooperate for a common cause, or does that create friction? That is where within our own organization, the role of HR and all these things become important. Mr. Surender Jain has spoken about trainings. Certainly, when we talk about the journey of evolving, we do realize in OGTC or companies that have grown over a period of time, trainings of the past were different. Not that they did not bring the results that were looked into. Yes, they brought the results. Training today may be different. Today, the focus on trainings may be a lot on SOPs, maybe on training of management rather than a worker level. Who really needs to do that? A trainer or a consultant cannot come to an organization and one could expect training 2,000 people in a span of 6 months or 3 months, whatever may be the process. But really, training of creating a culture, a progressive culture, becomes very important. Creating SOPs to that, towards that culture becomes very important. So I think there's a lot to be taken from here, a lot to be discussed on this. When you really talk about creating a culture or creating a change of an organization, to really believe that this can be done in a short standard time is not possible. It takes a time, goes into the progress. Once you are able to create the culture, the people themselves will bring that change within time. So people need to be patient. They need to walk this road. Otherwise, we will face a dead end. Surender, certainly wants to get into very detailed when we really talk about why do people talk about Vietnam, Bangladesh? What is missing here? It's the same people. We really need to see which is a thin line that separates us and cross that line. So thank you very much. I think this whole panel has too many thoughts in everyone's mind to think of to take it forward. I certainly believe even the PM of our country and we as citizens want to create jobs, want to create economy. Economy is what? People like you and me. I don't think there's anyone going to come from heaven to create the economy for us, or what even Prashant said, the right person. Prashant would be the most wanted person on this earth if he could give everyone the right person. So we need to believe people have the possibility, people have aspirants in their life. Are we able to create that for them? So thank you so much for this session. And certainly I believe this is going to go a long way. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony ji. Please, over to Richard.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Uppal. Thank you so much, Mr. Agarwal, for so amazingly summarizing the proceedings today. We had a wonderful set of speakers, and it's been a really, really enriching session. I thank all my delegates for being here with us. I think now we can we have a lunch break. It's a 1-hour break. After this, we have a series of workshops. We are going to commence sharp at 2 p.m. There are parallel workshops. So I would request everyone to please join us on time. And once again, on behalf of OGTC, thank you to everyone here.
Thanks. Thanks to all the panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you.